Good afternoon. It's 2 minutes past 2, so I think we're going to make a start. Okay, so good afternoon and welcome to the third and final webinar for the Doctoral Focal Award in Nuclear Skills. We're going to kick off with a bit of housekeeping. If you have any technical difficulties during the webinar, if you could email the students' inbox, and one of our colleagues will help you, we'll try to help you access the webinar again. We have got a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. We do ask that you wait until the end of the presentation before submitting your questions. Just a piece of information, all the attendees are muted with your cameras off. We also are aware that the raise hand function and the chat function also are not available in this setup. And we are aware as well that if you're accessing Teams via a web browser or a mobile device, you may have fewer capabilities. For example, the Q&A function might not work. If you have got any questions then that you can't submit during the webinar, please send these to the students' inbox and we will address them after the webinar. If you've got any really detailed questions that are really specific to your application, again, can you email the inbox and we will address those for you. We're looking to aim and publish the slides. We're looking to publish the slides and the answers to the questions that we've collected from the first two webinars and this one. We're going to put a document together, a Q&A document together, and put those on the funding opportunity page. That's going to be after this third webinar. We are recording the webinars, but that's more to help us create this Q&A document where we're answering questions live. You will have found the funding finder page and the full document, the detailed description of the Focal Award on there. And just to clarify that whilst EPSRC are leading the webinar, the funding is being provided for the award by from the UK government, and that's specifically from the Ministry of Defence and the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero. However, whilst EPSRC are leading the webinar, we are working closely across the other UKRI councils, specifically the Natural Environment Research Council, NERC, and the Science and Technology and Services Council, STFC. So just a little bit of background to this activity. It builds on the National Nuclear Strategic Plan for Skills and also other government priorities. The National Nuclear Strategic Plan for Skills, it sets out the future needs of the UK nuclear workforce. The opportunity is intended to deliver some key government priorities, and it is to support the UK nuclear industry by providing the nuclear skills personnel for the future. The objective is it's looking to train around 500 researchers and innovators and developing them the cutting edge skills and experience and industry connections for careers in the UK nuclear sector. We're looking at the Focal Award will deliver high quality cohort-based doctoral training in nuclear skills, and that's for both the nuclear civil and nuclear defence sectors. It will support students with home fee status. There's going to be four cohorts of students, and the first one will be starting in autumn 2026. It is open to new and existing collaborations. We have already had some questions on how this will work for an existing CDT that is expanding, and we will look to address that in the Q&A. document that we will produce. So in terms of who's eligible, who can apply, we have limited this to one application, as one institution can only apply as project lead on one application. However, institutions can be a co-lead on multiple applications. We are at the moment expecting £45 million worth of funding from the UK government. We are aware that there may be additional funding. There may be additional funding to this, but this is subject to business cases that are currently going through the spending review. So there is no certainty on that. The deadline for applications is the 23rd of October, and there is a mandatory intent to submit, which is required by the 12th of September. We do plan to publish some details on that, but I'll go through those in a later slide. I just need to reiterate that without an intent to submit, then we cannot accept a full application on the 23rd of October. And the form for the intent to submit is on the funding finder. Okay, so this is the timeline that we are working to. And I will say up front that we are aware that this timeline is challenging. It's challenging for many reasons, that it opens over the summer holidays, and we are fully aware that the dates that the decisions will be made on will be a challenge for recruiting students for autumn 2026. However, we've had little room to manoeuvre on this due to the dates and that when we got the confirmation of funding. To try and mitigate some of these challenges, we have extended the opening time of the opportunity, so it will have been open for 13 weeks by the 23rd of October, and we are working to make funding decisions as timely as possible. So as you can see, the call opened on the 25th of July. This is the third of the webinars that we've held. Intent to submit is the 12th of September. It closes on the 23rd of October. We're looking to have an expert SIF panel week commencing the 24th of November, and we are looking to notify applicants who we will be inviting to interview the week commencing the 1st of December. The interview panels are going to be within the week of the 12th, week commencing the 12th of January, and we are hoping that we can inform applicants by the end of January 2026, and the first cohort starts in autumn 2026. Now, the awards can start anytime between the 1st of April and the 1st of October 2026, but that is dependent on the individual setup that each application requires. So the scope of the award is set out in detail on the funding finder, and there is a section that provides background from the UK government on the strategic drivers for this opportunity. The funding opportunity has got very similar expectations to the CDTs, which EPSRC has awarded in the past. And just to say that the CDTs, or Centres for Doctoral Training, are the predecessor of these doctoral focal awards. So in terms of what we're asking for within the applications, your application must demonstrate a specific need for a doctoral focal award. So you need to demonstrate that there's a clear requirement for doctoral level education in the area. So the government has identified a clear need for the skills to be provided by this opportunity, and we are asking that applicants explain the particular focus of their application. You need to demonstrate a need for a cohort-based training approach, and this approach will need to demonstrate that there is cohort building and collaboration, not only within each cohort, but across the cohorts of the focal award, across disciplines, and also working with your industrial collaborators and partners. You also need to demonstrate that there is both depth and breadth in the research training to address the identified skills need. There's a clear requirement in the funding opportunity for interaction with industry and other users of the research training, and this is to support the demand for future for the future nuclear workforce. The funders are looking for co-creation and co-delivery from industry partners, and these partnerships can develop and change over the lifetime of the award. They don't all need to be fully fledged at the start of the award. There are no restrictions in terms of the qualifications you can award. It doesn't all have to be PhD, it can be NGDs. These are just examples, okay? But there is no restriction on the qualification you can award. You must include the option for students to study part-time. That's kind of non-negotiable, as it were. And there is a requirement to provide some taught elements in your application, so that you're not the training and that you're providing within your award is not just research specific training, but you're offering students wider developmental opportunities, such as things like project management, entrepreneurship, that sort of thing. Okay. Okay, so in terms of the scope of the focal award, it's not purely restricted, and the scope of the focal award is not restricted. It covers all relevant UKRI councils in terms of their boundaries and remits. However, the ones specifically involved at this moment are EPSRC, NERC and STFC. So applications are welcomed in all areas relevant to nuclear skills and that cover the breadth of the nuclear life cycle to meet the national and international defence commitments. You can focus on civil, you can focus on defence, or you can focus on both area sectors of the nuclear life cycle of the nuclear industry. As with all applications UKRI receives, there does have to be consideration excuse me, of trusted research and innovation. So applicants will be asked to demonstrate how awards will comply with UKRI's trusted research and innovation approach and expectation. You will, in addition to that, you will also need to address your own institution's legal responsibility in this regard. Applicants will need to identify the potential risks and put in place controls to manage those risks. Successful applicants will be asked to develop additional plans in areas within the positive culture and environment assessment criteria. These will be addressed through the assessment criteria, but we will look for further details from successful applications over the lifetime of their award. So in terms of eligibility, as I've said before, the lead organisation, you can only have one institution can have one application as the lead institution, but the lead institution doesn't have to be an organisation with doctoral research degree awarding powers. However, with it, if you're applying as a consortium, one of those organisations within that consortium must have degree awarding powers. So yeah, one application maximum as lead organisation. You can be a collaborating organisation or project partner on any number of applications, okay? But the lead organisation will act as the training grant holder if you are successful. Applications are welcomed from single institutions and also multi-institutional teams. the project lead must be from the lead organisation and satisfy the standard UKRI eligibility criteria. We do say that in terms of co-leads, we do generally expect no more than 10 project load co-leads on an award. And this is really just to maintain manageability in terms of the team size themselves. We welcome, as project co-leads, research technical professionals and professional research and investment strategy managers. These who are also considered to be integral to developing and delivering the focal award. Basically, you need to put together the team that you need to deliver the vision for your focal award. In terms of eligible costs, okay, what you can ask for. So just first of all, in terms of studentship costs, the studentship costs consist of fees, stipend, and research training and a research training support grant. Now, as I've said before, all students must be eligible for home fee status. The stipends need to be paid at the minimum, the minimum rate set by UKRI, which is published on our website. In terms of the research training support grant, what this is, just to explain, that is to cover items for individual students such as travel, consumables, and possibly and also facility access where that is linked to a research project. So the costs that we cover, the costs that this funding will cover, is the equivalent of 32 students over 4 cohorts. In addition to the minimum stipend rate set by UKRI, we do strongly encourage enhanced stipends if justified. In terms of the finalising the funding profile with the UK government, we do accept that given the dates and everything that we're dealing with, you may need to ramp up student numbers over the cohorts. Starting recruitment in January 2026 for an autumn start in 2026 could be challenging, but what we're saying here is you may start with a small cohort in cohort 1, but you can build that up to your you can build those students up over the remaining 3 cohorts. Okay, so in terms of costs, you can include delivery, coordination and management staff costs, but not supervision, or any standard costs associated with recruitment, standard laptops and visa and health service charges. You can include other relevant costs, such as support for diversity, career mobility across different career paths, the career development for students. You can include costs if you're looking to include innovative recruitment approaches, and also where you're looking to support the widening participation of your students and your staff. In terms of startup costs, now startup costs really will only apply to a new centre that is starting from scratch. If you've already, if there's already a training programme infrastructure in place, then that would not attract startup costs. We ask that you base your costs when you're putting your application in. If you base those on October 2025 prices, and then all the applicants are coming in at a level playing field to start off with. In terms of when the awards are made, UKRI will add fees and stipend indexation to that when we prepare the awards. Just to be clear, we don't apply indexation to the research training support grant element, the delivery coordination, or the management costs. This is because from our past experience with Centres for Doctoral Training, that these costs have often come in applications much higher than the level that they've actually been needed at. And the Centres for Doctoral Training over the past 2 iterations that we've had are regularly coming in as underspent. And just to say that for training grants, the funding is paid at 100%. It's different to research grants. Okay. So in terms of partnerships and leverage. Partnerships and leverage is a key requirement for this opportunity, and the UK government have been very clear on their expectations for this. They are looking for appropriate user co-creation contributions and engagement. They're looking for a balance of funding of 40% coming from the UK government funds, 40% from project partners, and 20% from host organisations. Now, this does take into account the full economic cost of delivering doctoral training, and it will also take into account in-kind contributions from project partners, and that's both the host and the industry partners. The balance of 40-40-20 will be measured across the lifetime of the award. You're not necessarily going to hit that immediately on your for your October 26 start. We do recognise as well, I do need to point out that we do recognise that institutional funding is quite a delicate issue at this time. We are aware that institutions are already leveraging the UKRI funding on training grants already, and that leveraging of funds will also be taken into account. It's not all just about cash contributions, but cash is very important to these applications. It's also recognised that when you're looking to collaborate with your project partners, that levels of commitment from large organisations versus small and medium enterprises is very different. Contributions from a wide range of partners is encouraged, and with that funding model being appropriate to their individual size. So yeah, so as I said, the minimum requirement, additional studentship cost support from non-UKRI sources is required to achieve a minimum of 40 students across the 4 cohorts. So therefore, if 32 students will be funded from UKRI government funding, and 8 from the non-UKRI or government source funding, and that's where the minimum of the 40 comes from, and that's across the 4 cohorts. In terms of project partners, we do require letters of support to be provided, and that they include breakdowns of total of what contributions they're going to make to the award, whether they be cash or in kind. Just one thing that I just want to make you aware of is that it is important to make your project partners aware of their commitments, especially when providing studentship costs. As you're aware, over recent years, the costs, especially for stipends, has increased, and it is the expectation that project partners are expected to increase their contribution in line with the proportion that they have committed to support a studentship. Project partners do need to understand that their costs can go up over a 4-year studentship, and these costs can also include their contribution to parental leave, maternity leave, medical leave, and the costs associated with the relevant extensions of needed for those leaves. Now, our terms and conditions in the past haven't clearly stated this, whilst that expectation has always been there. However, the terms and conditions have been amended with starting from the new ones that come into play on the 1st of October 2025 to clarify this. So that expectation will be much more clearly stated, shall we say, from the 1st of October in the terms and conditions from the 1st of October 2025. So yeah, so as an applicant, you will need to have a clear plan with which to maximise your leverage over the lifetime of the grant to aim to meet that 40-40-20 balance. However, we don't expect those to be reflected in your project partner letters by October the 23rd. Project partners can change over the lifetime. The ones that you start with may not carry through all the way through the whole length of the award. New ones will come in and come on board, and some may leave. Just to say, with regards to letters of support from project partners, the project partner letters of support, we're not expecting them, we're not accepting them, sorry, from the Ministry of Defence or the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero. However, from arm's length governing bodies, arm's length and other government departments, then we will accept letters of support from them. Okay. So as I've said before, the intent to submit is mandatory. It is due on the 12th of September. There is a citizen-based survey. The link is on the funding finder, and it's asking for information on the project lead with their contact email address, the project lead's institution, the collaborating team, along with their institution that's going to be involved in the application. And we've asked for a summary of what you're going to look at, what is within your proposed focal award. Now, we just want to emphasise there is no word limit, and that's my fault. I did not set a word limit in the citizen-based survey. I just want to say we're not looking for masses of information in this summary. Few hundred words. We're basically interested to see what the research areas and the research and that you're focusing on. As much as anything, that will help us to start approaching panel members to make sure we've got the right skills on the panels that we're going to be running. There is a consent. There's also a consent to publish on the intent to submit, but that is quite limited. We're just going to limit the information that we will publish on that. Okay. Okay, so as you're probably aware, there's one focal award application per institution. The deadline is the 23rd of October at 4 o'clock. The link on the funding finder is in the slides here. It was on the first housekeeping slide as well. And we do ask that when you submit your application, you start the title with Nuclear Doctoral Focal Award in. Okay, in terms of a statement of support from your project partners, there's guidance on the funding finder page, and we are only expecting letters of support from partners who are contributing to the centre in some way. We're not looking for general letters of support that just say, "Oh, this is fantastic," and they really support it. It's got to be from project partners who are actually contributing. There is an option to do include facilities in your application, and there is space to do that in the on the application. We don't now that we're on TFS, we don't have something like we used to have where you could submit a cover letter. The cover letters used to be used for applicants to put in say more sensitive information. For example, certain individuals that you did not want to be involved in the assessment of your application. That sensitive information now is needed to be provided by email, and there is a section on the funding finder under the heading sensitive information, and that's where you'll find the details of how to give us that information. Okay, in addition, as part of the application, we also asked you to complete this costings table. Any of you that have been involved in the Centres for Doctoral Training for 2018 and 2023 will have seen a very similar format to this. What we're looking for the number of students who you are proposing to support across all the funders. We're looking at how many you're going to support from the UKRI government funding, and the split across the four cohorts of those students. We are looking for you to provide the costs that you're asking for against each of the fund headings, and in addition, we're also asking for a breakdown of where the students are going to be studying across the nations and regions of the UK. Just to note, these may be different from the actual university that they are based at. This information will be useful when we come to look at the portfolio balancing stage after each of the two assessments. There is some basic validation on the form, and if you have any problems, then do contact the students' inbox. In terms of the assessment criteria, there are 5 core UKRI assessment criteria, which is vision, approach, positive culture and environment, capability to deliver, partnerships and governance. Each one of those has got its own allocated word limit, and we just want to reiterate, do pay attention to the bullets under each criteria, which provide details of the information that the assessors will be looking for. Those are the bits that it's critical that you answer clearly to explain what you're proposing to do. There are 2 additional criteria: the resources and cost justification, and the ethics and responsible research and innovation. All the assessment criteria are going to be weighted equally. So, as I've said in the timeline slide, the assessment will be a 2-stage process. There's going to be a SIFT stage, and this is the panels that will take place at the end of November. The SIFT panel is going to be drawn from the academia, from industry, and from other relevant communities and public sector organisations as well. The proposals will be assessed and scored against the published criteria, which are the ones I've just gone through. Once they've been scored, they're then going to be banded to prioritise applications that are going to be invited for interview. The final decisions on who will be invited for interview, as I've said, we're going to make those and communicate those by the 1st of December, and it will be the UKRI and UK government who will make those final decisions. At both stages, the panel members that we're going to use for the SIFT stage and the interview stage will be people with subject expertise and also with expertise of delivering doctoral training. So that's experience as a trainer, but also we're also looking to use expertise of being a centre manager, that sort of thing. So we've got a panel that can look holistically across each application. So when we come to the interview stage, the interviews are going to be held in person. They're going to be in-person interviews. We are currently planning to hold these at Polaris House in Swindon, and they will be held in the week commencing the 12th of January 2026. As I've said, if you wish to provide any information relevant to the interview, accessibility, anything like that, we will need to be aware of this, and please look at the sensitive information section on the funding finder. As likewise for the SIFT, interviewers will be drawn from the academic and user communities in the UK. Teams will be able to bring up to 3 people to the interview. We're not specifying who the team members coming to the interview should be. In terms of the Centres for Doctoral Training interviews that we held at the end of 2023, they were typically the project lead and members of the team themselves. You can also include some of your project partners as well in that three people team. So the interview format, it will consist of a short pitch with no slides, followed by the short pitch allows the applicants to demonstrate their vision and strategy, and then we'll follow that with a question and answer session with the panel. Like the SIFT panel, the proposals will be assessed and scored against the criteria and banded, and the decisions will be made between the UKRI and the UK government following the interviews. This assessment process, this is the assessment process as it stands, and it's the one that we fully expect to follow. However, at this point, until we see all the intent to submit, we don't really know how many applications we're likely to receive, so we don't anticipate needing to change the assessment process. However, if we should receive a very small number of applications, we may look to remove the SIFT process and take all applications through to interview. Next slide. Right, so I've talked about portfolio balancing as part of the assessment process, a part of the decision-making process. So the portfolio balancing, it'll follow after the both the SIFT and the interview panels, and it will be in addition to the assessment against the criteria. We'll consider things like the strategic priorities for the Ministry of Defence and the Department for Energy and Net Zero, as outlined in the what we're looking for section on the funding finder. We'll also consider the nuclear industrial sectors. We'll look at the scientific areas. We'll look at the geography based on the anticipated location of students, and we will also look at the UK research organisations. The main consideration will be sort of like the quality and the assessment criteria, but we will also consider looking at the balance that we don't end up with a large number of awards in a particular discipline, a particular area, so that we can balance, we can cover as much of the nuclear portfolio as possible. So the aim will be to achieve a balance across all these factors. So in conclusion, intend to submit 12th of September. We don't want masses and masses of information. The deadline for the submission is the 23rd of October. No submission without an intent to submit. And if you've got any detailed questions specific to your proposal, then if you can email those to us directly at the students team. And that is the end of the presentation. We move on to questions, and I will stop sharing. Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'll give Sarah a short break, but just to introduce Nick as well, because Nick will be helping out with answering the questions, which he already did. So we have one question that popped up. It's about the assessment criteria. Laura has asked whether there's equal weightings for all the 7 criteria or just the core 5, and Nick has responded really well. So we are going to, it's going to have equal weighting for all the 7. So we're going to assess it across the 7 criteria, not just the 5. So if you have any questions, you can drop it in the Q&A box, and we'll try to respond to this. But obviously, if Sarah did a really great job and then you have all the answers that you want, that would be great too. But if not, there's always an inbox available on this end.
I'm going to get a very easy ride.
Very different. Well, while we wait for questions, maybe Nick, if you have anything you want to add or anything, I think Sarah has really give a really comprehensive overview. But if anything you want to add, we can just drop in if you wanted to.
Yeah, I was just thinking back at some of the questions that came up on the previous webinars, and I mean, we have adapted the slides and what Sarah said to match this. But one that came up quite a lot was about the sort of the numbers and the leverage, and how the minimum requirements of having 40 students, of which no more than 32 are funded by the UKRI/UK government money, cohered with the ambition to deliver 500 students through this opportunity as a whole. And really, this is about the ambition for the overall programme. And as Sarah's explained, the amount of funding available is still being confirmed. We obviously don't know how much leverage you're all going to be able to attract over time as well. So really, 500 is saying that there's a real scale of ambition here to meet the needs of the nuclear sector going forward. But we recognise that the amount that we have at the moment, and then the amount of leverage that you'll be able to attract by October, won't be going towards 500, and the exact numbers will depend on how much budget there is and how much leverage can be achieved.
Mm-hmm. Great. So now we have questions coming in now, and related to what you just mentioned, Nick, David has actually wants some clarification on the 40-40-20 and how much of industry 40 needs to be firmly in place at the point of application.
So I've got a really unhelpful answer, which is as much as possible. I think we're all aware that it's going to be challenging to get lots of letters in this time frame, and particularly because this is a new opportunity. It's not like previous CDT or focal award opportunities across UKRI, where you'll have had a lot of run up and been expecting this to come. And so a lot of industry partners are aware of this and have been involved, working with government on delivering the programme in the first place. So then you may find there is some baseline understanding, but really it's about attracting as much as you can now, and then having a clear plan to get towards the 40-40-20 over the lifetime. And again, I understand it's not helpful probably because you're looking for a number, but it'd be very difficult for me to give a number and say you need to get at least this much. You know, we've said that there needs to be at least the cost of 8 students provided by non-UKRI sources. So that's the minimum. I think we're expecting on average to be higher than that, but there will be some differences between different proposals because of the areas they're in and the partners that they're attracting.
Great. Thank you, Nick. So the next 2 questions is about the intent of submit stage. So the first question is from Darren. It says, at this particular stage, can one university lead more than one bid? That is, if the university has not decided which to support by the EOI stage. I think that might be a quick one.
So I think ideally, no. I think ideally we would have one in, because that is a lot simpler. I think if you're in a position where you can't agree one by the EOI deadline, I'd suggest you get in touch with us at the students' EPSRC email address, and we'll discuss that. Ideally, it would be one per institution, and for the part of the reason is the answer to what I think is your next question, Dawn.
Just checking my understanding. After the intent to submit stage, are you going to share a list of potential applicants and consortia to everybody?
That's the plan, yes. So that's the consent that tick box that Sarah mentioned. And the idea behind this when we were talking to government was to we recognise there'll only be a limited phase between 12th of September and of course it'll be later than 12th of September because we've got to get it on our website first, and that can sometimes take a little while, and the closing date. But it helps show the community what potential bids are out there, and particularly for supporting industry partners who may or may not be involved, to see what potential bids are there. So yes, we'll publish the information, and on the form it tells you what information we plan to publish.
Great, thank you, Nick. Now, there's this question from Jackie. I think her name is Jackie Ailing, and it involves an acronym. What is the requirement for BPSS for 1 student to DLA staff? Will they all need screening? Now, for my benefit, Nick might know this, or Sarah, because I have no idea what BPSS means. So if you don't, I can ask Jackie to actually follow up. But if you do, feel free.
I do.
Yeah.
So this is the baseline personnel security standard. So it's security clearance at a certain level, not the highest level. So the situation is that there's no across the board requirement for security clearance for students or staff that are involved. And what our government partners have said is that for certain projects, it may be expected for this to be required. And I think those who are involved in particularly defence-related research will probably be quite used to this. So I think if it's a project that's going to need security clearance, I think you will be aware. And it's really that, particularly if you're going to work with MOD and its partners, but it may also be certain industry partners too. Those involved will need the security clearance in order to be able to access sites and equipment and the like.
Great, thank you. As a follow-up question from me, once I heard what you just said, when would they require this screening to be done? As in, do they need to do it at intent stage? Do they need to put it in the application? To make it more exciting, I guess what the question is, when it comes to applying,
yeah,
does including their justification how they're going to do this be useful? Or it doesn't really matter, is this assessment criteria based?
So I think, again, and Sarah, chip in if you've got any thoughts, I think if it's a project that's very clearly in, it's not going to be just the defence realm, but I think defence is obviously going to be a one where there's a much higher chance of needing security clearance. Some appreciation may help, but I don't think it's not going to affect chances of success. It's then a separate question for funded awards to have security clearance in place before students and staff are working on projects that will require security clearance. So there are going to be things that you're not going to be able to do if you don't already have security clearance, so accessing certain sites or data or the like.
Cool, thank you. Sorry, hope putting you at a spot. Yes, Sarah?
Yeah, no, I don't. Certainly for the 2 centres for doctoral training that we funded in 2023, that were also subject to this BPSS clearance. Again, it's to do with the projects that students and staff are working on. They were not in place at the point where the awards were made, but the expectation was that they would be, that those checks and everything were carried out subsequently.
Great, good. So next question. This is regarding the scope. For the scope section, you mentioned a requirement for doctoral level education in the area, in quote. I assume you mean research area as opposed to geographical area.
Yes, I did. Sorry, I wasn't clear. Yeah.
That's fine. We love questions. Right, let's see, new post. Let me have a look. So from Matt, at a previous webinar, I understand there was a suggestion that supervisor time could count towards 20% HEI, which is Higher Education Institute, I presume, required financial contribution. However, I would understand this to be funded by the student fee, which is a grant funded. Could this be clarified?
Yeah, so this is complicated, and UKRI is doing work at the moment on the full economic costing of delivering doctoral training. We've deliberately not been specific, because I think if we provide a prescriptive list, then quite reasonably people will find reasons to go, well, what about that, or what about this? And to be honest, at this stage, it's very difficult to do that. So effectively, we're saying that we will take into account the full economic cost of delivery when saying what the higher education institutions are providing by way of leverage. So this is not just about the costs that you could apply to UKRI for. So things that are more sort of in the overhead bracket could be eligible. But yes, we will have to take into account the fact that you do get fees provided for some of this. And what we will do is we'll work with successful applicants to provide a I guess a sort of a final prescriptive list, but I think it's difficult to say definitively at this time. There's a lot of work going on in the sector on this, and I think it would be premature to say perfectly what counts. But it is true that the fact that you receive the fee will have to be taken into account.
Thank you, and thank you for attending it twice. So from Matt, this is again back to the 40% industry funding. In terms of the 40% industry funding, is there any requirement for the university underwriting of third-party commitments as per the last, or as in 2023 CDD call?
So by applying, you are agreeing to deliver the 40 students minimum. That is the minimum requirement. So the 8, like in the 2023 EPSRC CDT call, effectively do need to be underwritten. I think given the 40-40-20 is a much higher level of leverage than in some of the successful 2023 CDTs, I think we're anticipating that there aren't going to be that many proposals that are really on the edge. So I think that hopefully you've got more industry partners on board, and I guess are therefore not sort of close to the 40 mark, but actually delivering far more students than that. So there isn't as such a requirement to underwrite past that, but there is a requirement to have a plan to keep attracting new industry partners, or to leverage more from the partners you have, or to keep finding additional leverage from other sources. And that's more the important part than about underwriting specific amounts of money.
Mm-hmm. Good. The next question is related, but it's also related to submission criteria, whether they could related to existing CDT. So the question is, do you think there will be a good sufficient number of good quality PhD candidates to fill the 50 plus new PhD vacancies?
I don't know whether we have. I don't think whether we have an opinion as to whether there's sufficient good quality PhD candidates out there. One thing that the government are particularly interested in is not just taking students who have come straight from undergrad qualifications, but also there are employees in the nuclear industry today who maybe didn't have that opportunity to go and do a PhD. And once you get into work, it is acknowledged that it's very difficult to come back into education, especially when you are a certain way through your career. There is an anticipation that there could be a number of those candidates who would jump at the chance to have the opportunity to do a PhD whilst they are still working. So that is one source of candidates.
And I think the only other thing I'd say is that the eligible costs for this opportunity very clearly offer lots of flexibility. So Sarah said that we strongly encourage requesting funding for enhanced stipends. You know, we're aware of the challenges of recruiting UK students particularly in engineering and physical sciences areas. And if the stipend rate is one of those barriers, then that's something that you can apply for. We are allowing the flexibility around students who are employed, as Sarah said, and also costs associated with innovative routes for recruiting students. If there's different ways of doing it or better support for a diverse group of people, those are all eligible costs as part of this opportunity.
Great, thank you. Last question for now. Will the RTSG facility funding also cover access to industrial facilities, such as those who handle specific radioactive materials that can only be used in certain facilities?
So I think if it can be justified, then yes. And the only other consideration is whether, if it's an industry partner that you've got as a project partner, can they provide these in kind and start contributing more towards the 40-40-20? But I think if they're justified as part of the project, then that's fine. And I think we're anticipating that there's going to be a lot of experimental projects with higher RTSG than average for a UKRI training grant, and RTSG being the research training support grant.